विदण्डास्यं गिरां देवीं सद्गुरोः पादपङ्कजं जगद्गुरुंश्च शृङ्गाद्रिस्थितान् वन्देऽर्थसिद्धये मालासुधाकुम्भविबोधमुद्रा विद्याविराजत्करवारिजाताम् अपारकारुण्यसुधाम्बुराशिं श्रीशारदाम्बां प्रणतोऽस्मि नित्यम् सत्यज्ञानसुखस्वरूपममलं क्षीराब्धिमध्यस्थितं योगारूढमतिप्रसन्नवदनं भूषासहस्रोज्ज्वलं त्र्यक्षञ्चक्रपिनाकसाभयवरान् बिभ्राणमर्कच्छविं छत्रीभूतफणीन्द्रमिन्दुधवलं लक्ष्मीनृसिंहं भजे भारतीकरुणापात्रं भारतीपदभूषणं भारतीपदमारूढं भारतीतीर्थमाश्रये विद्याविनयसम्पन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वन्दे वेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं विधुशेखरभारतीं सदाशिवसमारम्भां व्यासशङ्करमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् उल्लङ्घ्य सिन्धोः सलिलं सलीलं यशोकवह्निं जनकात्मजायाः आदाय तेनैव ददाह लङ्कां नमामि तं प्राञ्जलिराञ्जनेयम्. Namaskaram to everyone. It's a nice program we have today, right after Hanuman Chalisa. Like Uncle said, we're talking about Hanuman and his speech. So Hanuman, of course, is one of the most prominent characters in the Mahabharata, in the Ramayana, although he does also feature in the Mahabharata as well, in a somewhat lesser capacity. But in Ramayana, Hanuman is one of the three greatest characters that Valmiki presents to us. So even from the more religious standpoint of looking at Ramayana, there are three devatas in Ramayana. So we have Bhagavan Vishnu as Rama, we have Mahalakshmi, Shakti as Sita, and then we have Rudra, we have Shiva as Hanuman. So the point of ascribing these three deities to these three characters is yes, they are the incarnations of those characters, but also to remind us that these three are the ones that we should strive the hardest to emulate. These three are the most worthy of emulating. Rama, of course, is the pinnacle of dharma. Rama Vigrahavan Dharmaha is a statement that is said by Rama's enemy. So Maricha himself is accepting to Ravana that Rama is dharma personified. Then we have Sita. Sita is the pinnacle of womanhood, pinnacle of character, as Vivekananda says. Vishwanatha Satyanarayana in his Telugu Ramayana. So Hanuman says to Sita, Ni charanamu duvva ravva shirasa paridharyamu strijagattukun. So he says to Sita, a fragment of a speck of dust from your feet is worthy to be put on the head of all of mankind and womankind. So Sita is the character of such lofty standards, and of course Hanuman is the character that appears for the shortest of these three characters. Hanuman appears for the shortest time in Ramayana, and yet seemingly has the greatest effect on the story. So until Hanuman comes into Ramayana, the predominant rasa of Ramayana is Karuna. So we know that there are 9 rasas: Shrangara, Veera, Karuna, Adbhuta, Hasya, Bhayanaka. So romance, heroism, rage, disgust. So Karuna, the compassion, the sorrowful tone, is actually the main tone that's set in Ramayana. So Balakanda set aside, Ayodhya Kanda is Dasharatha and basically all of Ayodhya sorrowing for Rama. Aranya Kanda is depicted especially with Rama's sorrowing for Sita, Shurpanakha's humiliation, all of that, but most specifically the Viraha, the separation between Rama and Sita. And then also in Kishkindha Kanda, there is a long description of the Varsha Kala, of the rainy season, where Rama is pining for Sita. So kind of until Hanuman comes, the tone is very, very dull. It is not dull, but it is gloomy. The tone is one of Karuna. And actually in Champu Ramayana, in Bhoja's Ramayana, Rama is walking by Pampa Saras. So there is a lake there of Pampa. And there is a light breeze that is blowing from over the lotuses in the pond. Generally, for anyone, that is a very pleasant sensation. For anyone, that is a very engladdening situation. But to Rama, he says, Manmatha dhoranagnya mathita pathika vargaha maruta vyala hasti virachayati madiye shaitya saurabhya mandya trividha madasamriddhim manase vapralilam. So he says that this wind to me, this slight breeze seems to me to be an elephant that is trampling on my heart, and this elephant is spurred on by the Mahut, the Mavattivadu, that is Manmatha. So Manmatha has specifically told this elephant of this wind to come trample all over my heart because it is reminding me of Sita. It is a situation that is fit for Sringara with Sita, but she is not here. So until Hanuman enters Ramayana, there is this marked sense of gloom. But once Hanuman comes, life bursts again in Ramayana. Everyone is happy. Good things start happening. Sita is seen. Lanka is burnt. Lankani is defeated. The bridge is built. Ravana himself is killed, and then Rama Pattabhisheka happens. So the turning point of Ramayana, the turn of the tide in Ramayana, comes with Hanuman's entry into the story. And the way Hanuman is introduced to us, Valmiki, of course, is the poet par excellence. So Prachetasaf Pravachasam Prathamah Kavinam. He is the greatest of all poets, both in terms of the chronology, he is the first of all poets, and in quality, he is the first of all poets. So the way Valmiki introduces Hanuman to us is also a very dramatic and a very poignant entrance. So Sugriva has just seen Rama and Lakshmana entering the boundaries of the Parvata that he's living on, of Rishimukha Parvata, and he starts getting scared. He's running helter-skelter, and of course, once the king runs, all the other subjects too will start running. So once they saw Sugriva running, the other Vanaras too got scared, and they started running as well. So then, Uvacha Hanuman Vakyam Sugrivam Vakya Kovidaha. So the very entrance of Hanuman in Ramayana is happening with this sentence. Uvacha Hanuman Vakyam. So Hanuman spoke to Sugriva, and the first epithet that Valmiki uses for Hanuman is Vakya Kovidaha. So Hanuman, if Hanuman's character can be summed up in one word, it is Vakya Kovida, one who is skilled at oration, one who is skilled at speaking. And most of the good that Hanuman does, of course, we like to remember his valor and his strength and all of that, but most of the good that Hanuman does is seen in his words. So it is with his words that he united Rama and Sugriva. It is with his words that he crossed Mainaka. It is with his words that he made sure that Sita was made brave again, and that Sita clung to life and to hope. It is with his words that he plants the seed of fear in Ravana's heart. It is with his words that he brings back Sita's message to Rama. And it is with words again in the end in Yuddhakanda that he keeps Bharata alive. Bharata is ready to do Prayopavesha. He is ready to burn himself in the fire if Rama is not back by the stipulated time. So Rama very cleverly sends Hanuman, not any other Vanara, but he sends Hanuman ahead to tell Bharata that he is coming with Sita and everyone else. So Hanuman's entire character is summed up by the words Vakya Kovida, by the fact that he is skilled at speaking. So Uvacha Hanuman Vakyam Sugrivam Vakya Kovidaha. So the scene is set for Hanuman's character with this word Vakya Kovida, one who is skilled at speaking. And the first words Hanuman says, Sambhramastyajatam esha, let go of this fear. Let go of this lack of discrimination. Let go of this confusion. So the goal of Hanuman's character is to remove confusion, fear, delusion from the characters around him. Wherever he goes, Hanuman is a voice of reason, a voice of logic, a voice of calm, and a voice of rationale. So Sambhramastyajatam esha, Vakya Kovidaha sums up Hanuman's character. Sambhramastyajatam esha sums up the message and the role that he plays in interacting with other characters. So then Sugriva says, okay, I will calm down. You first go to these two people that have come with these fearsome weapons. Remember that this Kodanda that Rama is bearing is one that comes from Indra himself. Indra gives them to Agastya to give to Rama. So these are not weapons of the mortal realm. These are divine weapons that they're carrying. So Sugriva is rightly scared. So he says, first go to them, talk to them, make sure that they're not sent by Vali, and then you can decide how things should proceed. So then Hanuman goes and speaks very eloquently to Rama and Lakshmana. First he goes in Bhikshurupam Samasthaya. So Kapirupam Parityajya. He does not appear as a Vanara because a Vanara by nature is said to be fickle. So if he appears in that way to the new people that he's about to meet, he may be construed as someone of low character that is fickle. So to make sure that doesn't happen, he goes as a bhikshu, as a sannyasi, or as a mendicant, and basically a form that is very respected in society and that someone will be willing to lend credence to. So then, when he goes like that in front of Rama and Lakshmana, he starts speaking. So there's a very nice vachana here in Champu Ramayana. So a Champu Kavya is one that has both Gadya and Padya. Gadya is prose, Padya is poems. So in Champu Ramayana, Bhoja Maharaja writes a very nice a vachana here. So Hanuman speaks very smartly. He says, I see that both of you are clad in bark. Speaking to Rama and Lakshmana, both of you are clad in bark and you have arms that are as thick as tree trunks. But so I thought initially that you two are moving kalpavrikshas. But then I saw that you two were moving, so I realized that you must not have been kalpavrikshas. Though you have bark and though you have tree trunk like thick, strong arms, because you are moving, I then had to realize that you two are not kalpavrikshas. Then I saw you two, Rama especially, he is very dark in color and he's holding a bow that looks like the Indradhanus, like a rainbow. So then I thought that you were a rain cloud. But then I saw that today is sunny, so you must not be a rain cloud. And then he says, and then I saw the both of you, and I thought because of your tejas you are Surya and Chandra. But then I saw that you two yogapadya bhasatvad bhavanto na pushpavanto, he says. Because both of you are shining at the same time, I then realized that you two are not the sun and the moon, because the sun and the moon do not shine brightly at the same time. Of course, in some cases the moon comes out even when the sun is shining on the opposite side of the sky. But brightly both do not shine. And both of you are shining brightly at the same time in front of my eyes. So both of you are not the sun and the moon. So he speaks very cleverly like this. And of course, Rama and Lakshmana are, spellstruck by the way that he speaks. So Hanuman speaks for a while, and once he has gauged, so after these first few statements, Hanuman has seen enough of Rama and Lakshmana to gauge their character. So then he feels comfortable enough to reveal that he is actually a Hanuman who is a Kapi, who is a Kamarupa. He says that too. This is not my true form. I have appeared like this, but I am actually a Vanara. Hanuman says that too. He tells that he's a Vanara, but he only says that once he has gauged the character of Rama and Lakshmana from the way that they are responding to his speaking. So then he even mentions that Sugriva is a Vanara king. He is in need of friendship because Vali has taken his wife away. And then after saying all this, Hanuman goes silent. So after asking, are you Rajarshis, are you a Raja, are you a Rishi, why are you here, who are you, after saying all of this, after praising them quite a bit too, Hanuman goes silent after he has said what he has needed to say. And then after that follows the shlokas that are most quoted when talking about Hanuman's Vakya Kovidatva, when talking about Hanuman's skill at speaking. So even these shlokas are repeated whenever someone needs to be taught how to speak, whenever someone needs to be taught how to chant, whenever someone needs to be taught how to have conversation. These are the same shlokas to this day that are repeated again and again. So the first thing that Rama says, Rama speaks to Lakshmana, because though Rama is in the forest, he is still a Chakravarti of the Ikshvaku Kula. In the Ikshvaku Kula, they are described as Asamudra Kshitishanam. So their dominion extends to all the way up to the oceans. So the Jaitrayatra of Raghu, so the conquest of Raghu is described. He goes from the waters of Kanyakumari all the way up to the mountains of Himalayas, all the way up to Afghanistan, and that whole Indian subcontinent is conquered by them. And they do not annex those countries, but they merely establish dominion over them. So the kings have to come, pay a tax to them, homage to them, be bound to their will, etc., etc. So Rama is not just someone that is roaming the forests free of will. Rama is still a member of that Ikshvaku dynasty. And another thing worth noting is when Bharata comes to ask Rama at Chitrakuta, to ask Rama to return to Ayodhya, Rama says, for these 14 years, you take care of the cities, I will take care of the territories, because I am wandering the forests anyway. Rama says this to Bharata, you take care of the city, you take care of the Nagaras, I will take care of the Vanya Pradesha. I will take care of the other territories that we hold dominion over. Which is why it was appropriate for Rama to kill the Rakshasas that were causing adharma in the territories that the Ikshvaku kings held sway over. Anyway, so the point is here that still Rama is a king. He is the emperor of the Ikshvaku dynasty, and therefore he should not speak directly with a duta, with an emissary. Not just Rama, but even Ravana follows this protocol in Sundarakanda. So when Hanuman is bound of his own will and brought to the Sabha, Ravana tells Prahasta to ask the questions. Prahasta is his Senapati, also Senapati slash Mantri. So Ravana tells Prahasta to ask questions, and it is Prahasta that asks Hanuman who he is, where he came from, why he came, why he did what he did. So in this way, this protocol of a king not speaking to a duta and instead having a subordinate speak to them is followed by Rama, in that he tells Lakshmana to speak. But before he tells Lakshmana to speak, Rama gives his assessment of Hanuman's learning and Hanuman's character and Hanuman's speech. So the first thing he notices is Nanrigveda Vinitasya Nayajurveda Dharinaha Nasamaveda Vidushaha Shakyam Evam Prabhashitum. So first thing he tells Lakshmana is someone who has not studied the Rigveda, someone who has not studied Yajurveda, someone who has not studied Samaveda cannot speak like this. So we need to look at the words that Valmiki uses here, because especially when a rishi is using words, no word falls without reason. So we need to look at these. So na anrigveda vinitasya. So the word Valmiki uses for Rigveda is vinita. Vinita means one who is well versed in. So for Rigveda, the meters, Rigveda is mostly set to meters. So there are three types of mantras: Rik, Yajas, and Sama. So Rik mantras are mantras that are set to chandas, that are set to a meter. Yajur mantras are mantras that are not set to a meter, and Sama mantras are Rik mantras that are sung. So besides just the Udatta, Anudatta, Svarita swaras, there are more swaras that are added, which is why we derive Sangita from Samaveda. But these are the three types of mantras. Rigveda has predominantly Rik mantras in it. Yajurveda has predominantly Yajur mantras in it, and Samaveda has Sama mantras in it. So that's how the Vedas got their name. So for Rigveda, he used Vinita, because for Rigveda, these Rik mantras are generally used for praise. A lot of them are used for praise. So praising certain devatas, praising Indra, praising Yama, praising Agni, praising Varuna. So praise of devatas is mostly set to Rik mantras. So because Hanuman was able to speak so eloquently and so poetically, it shows that he did a thorough reading of Rigveda. So na anrigveda vinitasya. Then na yajurveda dharinaha. So for yajurveda, the word that Ramachandra uses is dharinaha. So one needs to have dharana in Rigveda. So most avadhanis that we see, not the avadhana that I do, the avadhana that is done in Veda. So they're supposed to tell any portion in any way in certain orders. And then of course there's krama, jata, danda, ratha, ghana, all of those sets, the means of doing Veda. And all of this, of course, needs to be memorized. So, na ayajurveda dharinaha. Yajurveda, because it is not set to meter, is harder to memorize. Yajur mantras are harder to memorize. If something is set in meter, there is a laya, there is a rhythm that it takes. Astyuttarasyam dishidevatatma himalayo namanagadhirajaha purva paro varinidhi vagahya sthitaf prithivya ivamanadandaha. There is a rhythm to all chandas, to all poems that are set in chandas. Whereas for gadya, for prose, for things that are not in chandas, it is much harder. Tadani mudanvadullangana dridhatara nihita charana nishpedanam sodhum akshamaha kshma bhrideshaha nirantara nishkheda nishpedamiva. So this is a vachana that is in Champu Ramayana, but you can see there is no laya to this, there is no rhythm to this. So it is much harder to memorize something that is not set to a meter, which is why it is very hard to memorize Yajur mantras. And especially Yajurveda is very important for smarta karma, because a lot of the yajnas that you're supposed to do, so what goes where, what darbhas you put where, what are the mantras you were supposed to tell, which mantras you tell in which situation, and how the kriya needs to be done, so how the chiti, so how the bricks need to be set out for the homakunda. All of this is laid out in Yajur mantras. So Pushkara Parnehi, Pushkara Dandaishta Saggastirya, it'll tell you where to put what. So these instructions are given in prose. So you need to remember this, and if you are a yajika, you need to also remember where or what to do, because Veda does not tell everything everywhere as well. So there is this concept of prakriti and vikriti. So prakritivat vikriti kartavyaha. So there are certain genres of yajnas, certain types of yajnas. So let's say, for example, Somayagnyas. There are 7 Somayagnyas. Veda does not describe how to do each one of these Somayagnyas. It'll only explain one Somayagnya thoroughly. And for the other yajnas, it'll only tell what needs to be replaced. So, for example, instead of Godhumas, it'll tell you to do some other Dhanya in some other place. Or instead of then Agni Devata being in one place, it'll tell you to do Surya as the Devata in another place. So it won't explain. So let's say there's Yajna A. So Soma Yajna A will be explained thoroughly, completely. This is called the Prakriti, the blueprint for all other yajnas. And then Somayajna B will not be explained head to toe again. Veda will only tell you the 1 or 2 things that are changed from A to B, and the rest need to be imported from A. So if one needs to have a clear understanding of how these yajnas are to be done and how they interact with each other, you need to have all of that in memory with clarity. So for someone to be able to speak that way, they must have studied Yajurveda. So Yajurveda training is shown in that. Then na asamaveda vidushaha. So in Samaveda, Vaidushya is seen. So of course, as I said, Samaveda is singing. So mantras are sung, which is why you also see a lot of hand motions when people tell Samaveda. The different staras that the swaras go in are depicted with hand movements as well. So there is a sampradaya of not only chanting, but also hand movements that goes with Samaveda. So for someone to do all of that properly, especially for the arts, right? We use the word vidwan a lot with arts. So for Sangeetam, if someone sings very well, if they're a pandita in Sangeeta Shastra, we call them vidwan something, or vidushi if they're female. So this vaidushya, this dexterity in speaking, so the tone which he's speaking, the modulations that Hanuman is showing, the sweetness of the voice, all of this points to good training in Samaveda, or the fact that he has been well versed in Samaveda. So na asamaveda vidushaha shakyamevam prabhashitam, then Rama says. And then he says more, he describes more about the way that Hanuman is speaking. Urastham kanthagam vakyam vartate madhyame svare. So when Hanuman is speaking, where are the words coming from? They're coming from the chest and kantha. They're not coming from the nose. This is a general tenet that we are told. Even in Sangeeta, when you're told to sing, you're said that gamakas need to come from the nabhi, not from the mouth. The gamakas sound very thin, and they don't sound very good if they're generated from the mouth. The nada needs to come from either the nabhi, the chest, or the throat. So only then will it sound nice. If it comes from the nose, it frankly sounds quite comical. It sounds like SpongeBob if it comes from the nose. So Urastham kanthagam vakyam vartate madhyame svare. Then he also says samskara krama sampannam avilambitam, avyatham avilambitam. So the words that Hanuman is speaking reflect his samskara. So this is generally shown in how much slang you use. If you use a lot of slang, slang is generally not used in refined speech. So it is okay, I guess, when speaking to friends. But when a duta is conducting business, when an emissary is conducting business with another party, it is not proper to use slang, to use jargon, to use lingo that is specific to a region. It is important that they use proper, pristine, refined language that is equally agreeable to both parties. That is why the law is written in very strict formal speech. Then again, it is not so formal as to turn off the other person, which is why Rama says, Ucharayati kalyanim vacham hridaya harshinim. So though he is speaking very clearly and very refinedly, it is not the kind of speech that when heard in sabhas makes all the listeners fall asleep. This is one that endears the speaker to the listener. For some reason, when some people speak, we feel that they are very good speakers and that we want to listen to more. That there is some quality in his voice that engladdens the heart, that makes the heart happy, which is why Rama says, if someone hears this, chittam aradhate chittam udyataser arerapi, kasyan aradhate chittam udyataser arerapi. Even if an enemy that has his sword already drawn to fight and is advancing, even such an enemy, his heart also will be gladdened by the way Hanuman has spoken. Hanuman's voice is so pure, so clean and so endearing. Where will this come from? So obviously the question is, right, so we have talked about the samskara. The samskara comes from our word choice, the words that we use. But where does this quality come from? The ability to endear ourselves to all the listeners. This comes not from an oratory practice, but from practice in character. If the heart inside is pure, if the heart inside is noble, if the heart inside wishes well for all others around us, the effect that our words have on those around us will also be likewise. Actually, Patanjali says, Ahimsa pratisthayam tat sannidho vairatyagaha. So in Yoga Shastra, if you practice the yama of ahimsa, so of not hurting anyone around us, not just by deed. So ahimsa is not just sharirik ahimsa. Ahimsa is not just going and hitting someone or shooting someone or cutting someone. Ahimsa is also that conducted by speech and mind. So our words should be measured not to hurt anyone else. Our thoughts also should not be wishing harm upon anyone else. So if one has done ahimsa in thought, word, and deed, then tat sannidho, in the presence, in the vicinity of someone that has followed this, vairatyagaha, feelings of enmity will be released from the hearts of those around them. So if such a person, if someone that has followed ahimsa faithfully in both word and deed, he has not hurt anyone with his actions, he is not hurting anyone with his speech. If such a person is in a particular place, for a certain radius around that, only positive sentiments will be echoed and re-echoed in the hearts of the people there. So if someone has that kind of a heart and that kind of a character, the words that they speak will have such an effect. Udyataser arerapi chittam aradhayate. Even the heart of someone with sword uplifted will be mollified, will be gladdened, will be pacified, Rama says. And then also he says, avilambitam, asindigdham avilambitam. The way Hanuman is speaking, there is no sandeha. So if you have not practiced properly for a speech, or if you have not prepared properly, once you start speaking, there will be a lot of buts, ums. The sentences will not be coherent. There will not be a cohesive line of thought that is followed. Hanuman is not an orator like that. In the time that he came from Sugriva to here, Hanuman had a layout. How do I approach this situation? So what is the task set to me? The task is to find out if these two people are hostile, and if they are not hostile, then to make them favorable to our cause, to Sugriva's cause. So Hanuman has a task set in mind, and then he thought, how do I best achieve this? So first, I will praise them. So they say, and there is a nice shloka in Sanskrit, mukham pindena puritaha. So even a mridanga, if you put some nice flour on its ends, it will make a nice sound. Pindi vantal notlo baga pedte vaadu baga paluktadanta. So like that, even a mridanga, once you give it some flour to eat, it is making a nice sound. So like that, if you first say something nice about the other person, they're more likely to be willing to listen to your cause and more willing to be favorable towards you. So Hanuman's plan is, first, I will praise them. I will give them my assessment of how great I think they are, of how valorous I think they are, of how noble I see their tejas to be. And then in that time, I can then assess them, and then I can decide what to do after that. So Hanuman has a set plan. He has an agenda, and he has the proper words that he needs to carry out that agenda. So asandigdham, there is no confusion in Hanuman's words. There is utter confidence in every word he says. If someone is sitting down to teach Bhagavata, he says, I think it was Shuka that came. I think the other person was Parikshit, and he spoke for 7 days, I think. If someone speaks like this about Bhagavata, they cease to be an authority. There is no reason that the listener will have any faith, any vishvasa in what the speaker is saying. You need to speak with confidence. And we see this is applicable to this day too in interviews. Regardless of whether it's right or wrong, you need to speak with confidence. Show that you trust your abilities, that you trust your intellect, that you trust your decision-making skills, that you trust the learning and work that you have put in before you go there. If you don't know, say you don't know, fine. But say that confidently. There is no need to be a half and half shy person that is giving the interview. So these qualities in Hanuman, so these qualities of retention, these qualities of clear speech, these qualities of what words to use, these qualities of the tone to use. Vartate madhyame sware. So, we should not be yelling at the other person, but we should also not be whispering in such a way that what we say is not clear. So the tone that we use with the other person, all of these things that is shown in Hanuman are things that we need to use, that Rama himself points out to Lakshmana. And this is also reiterated in Vyakarana Shastra. So, Bahuvyaharata anena, Nunam Vyakaranam Kritsnam, anena Bahudhashritam, Bahuvyaharata anena Nakinchid Apashabditam. So, Rama points out, by the way that Hanuman has spoken, this Hanuman has studied Vyakarana in many ways and many times. Bahudha means both things, in many ways and many times. Because in all the words that he has said, not one grammatically incorrect word has come out. Now, for us, that seems obvious, but if you are speaking in Sanskrit or in Prakrit or in Indian languages for that matter, it is very important to be grammatically correct and to show that the words reflect a study of the language. You need to have linguistic knowledge if the words that you speak need to be forceful and potent. So, Hanuman's knowledge of Vyakarana is something that endears him to Rama. So, interestingly enough, in Vyakarana Shastra, so the Shastra that Panini, Patanjali, Katyayana Maharshi, all of those rishis put forth, they actually mention this. They show that the Bhakta found a spot in Bhagavan's heart through his knowledge of Vyakarana. So, Rama and Hanuman, this is the first time that they are meeting. Rama does not know if Hanuman is friend or foe yet at the time that Hanuman is praising him. But due to Hanuman's knowledge of Vyakarana, due to his oratory skills, and also due to the words that he uses, due to the language that he uses, he is immediately endeared to Rama and finds a place in Rama's heart. How do we know this? Rama says, if someone has a duta like this, evam guna gunair yuktam, he says, if a duta yasyasyuh karya sadhakaha, so a king whose workers, a king whose subordinates have these qualities that I've listed out above. So the tone, the words that are used, the knowledge to back it up, the confidence that he speaks with, the planning that he speaks with. If someone has all of these, the king whose subordinates have all of these qualities, sarvartha, he will be able to achieve anything he wants. So we know that Hanuman has found a place in Rama's heart because Rama says this. Rama, in seeing Hanuman, has already assessed that such a duta, such an emissary, can conduct any business successfully, can conduct any task successfully, which is why Rama gives his ring to Hanuman to give to Sita. Rama knows that Hanuman is the most proper duta he can find, the best person to carry a sandesha to Sita, the best person to carry a sandesha, to carry a message to Ravana, and not only carry messages, but the vyavahara jnana, the samskara that we talked about earlier, the samskara that is reflected in Hanuman, the proper behavior that is reflected in Hanuman's words and in his body language, Rama pinpoints that this can be useful. Because we see when Hanuman goes to Lanka, once he speaks with Sita, he does not leave. He does not say, my job is done because I have done what Rama wanted me to do. I have seen Sita and actually I've gone a step further. I have spoken to Sita, so my job here is done. No. Hanuman assesses the situation and sees what else he can do. Karye karmani nirdishte yo bahunya pisadhayet purvakarya virodhena sakaryam kartumarhati. So I have achieved someone who can achieve extra tasks that are conducive to the previous task without hurting the previous task. He is a good duta. So my task is what? To see Sita. I have seen Sita. But my job is also as a duta of Sugriva and Rama to assess Lanka, to see the kingdom, to prepare for war if war is necessary. So I need to make sure that I test the Rakshasa's strength. So me testing the Rakshasa's strength should not conflict with my seeing Sita. So based on this tenet, Hanuman then plans out everything else he does. Okay, so I will fight them, and then I will appear to fall bound to them, and I will go to Ravana, I will talk to Ravana, I will see if I can convince him, and then I will go back to Rama. So Hanuman has all of this planning in mind because he is a good duta. He sees the big picture. He does not just do one facet of what the Prabhu, of what the employer wants him to do in return. So Rama envisions all of this when he sees Hanuman. Hanuman speaking shows Rama that he is a good Duta, which is why Hanuman to this day is the prime example of a Karya Sadhaka, which is why even the temple in Dallas is Karya Siddhi Hanuman temple. A lot of mantras of Hanuman are Karya Sadhaka Hanuman mantras. So even Sita says this. So Raghavastvat Samarambhat Me Rama Tamasmin Karya Niryoge Pramanam Harisattama Hanuman Yatnamasthaya Dukkhakshay Karo Bhava. So even Sita says, Hanuman, when I want you to carry back my message to Rama, when I want you to conduct business henceforth, I think that you are proper and that you have the right knowledge and the right characteristics to carry this out. How does Sita know this? Sita too has not done anything more with Hanuman than speak to him. She has not seen him jump the ocean, and Hanuman has not fought with Rakshasas yet. So even Sita's assessment of Hanuman as a Duta comes from this. So Rama and Sita, both equally versed in kingcraft and statesmanship, they both latch upon Hanuman they both realize Hanuman to be very adept at getting things done. A very good manager and a very good employer, Hanuman is. So these qualities of Hanuman are reflected in his speech. So by studying Hanuman's speech, we study Hanuman's character, his knowledge, his depth, his gambhirya, his samskara. Studying Hanuman's speech, the way he talks, the way he conducts business with different characters, is enough to tell us the way that we ourselves need to speak, the way that we ourselves need to interact with other characters. So his name itself, in fact, Hanuman. Hanu is the jaw. He was called Hanuman because his jaw was so strong that it could survive even Indra's Vajrayudha. But the more deeper philosophical meaning here is all speech comes from the jaws, the two jaws, the mandibles, the bone in anatomy, they're the mandibles. So all words come from this jaw. So Hanuman, one whose jaws are adept, one whose jaws are skilled, basically one who is skilled at speaking well is Hanuman. And interestingly enough, even if we take this to a more upasana side, to a more religious side, Hanuman is Agni, Agnisvarupa. And Agni is the person that gives rise to speech. Manah kayagnimahanti saprerayati marutam, tells Shiksha Shastra. So the desire to speak blazes in the form of Agni within, and it is that Agni that then spurs on the air to come out as speech. So Hanuman, not just in the Kavya sense, so not just as a character is meant to represent a skilled orator, not just as a dharmic personality is meant to represent skilled oration, not just as a philosophical entity is meant to represent skilled oration, but also from the upasana side of things. Hanuman is the Vak Svarupa. He is the Vak that appears in the form of Agni. So this Hanuman, who is Vakya Kovida, is a deity that definitely needs to be studied closely from Ramayana. Prayed to and studied. We need both things from Ramayana, Adarsha and Aradhya. Ramayana does give us, as I said in the beginning, these three devatas that we need to worship. Hanumat Smaranat Bhavet, right? Buddhir Balam. So all those qualities come about from thinking of Hanuman, yes, but also from Adarsha, from setting them as role models, from studying their qualities and trying to inculcate those qualities in ourselves. It is very hard for us to jump across oceans, kill Rakshasas, and burn down cities. In some cases, those might even be federal felonies. But we must inculcate in ourselves the oratory skills of Hanuman, the behavioral skills of Hanuman, the vyavahara that Hanuman has. So when we read Ramayana, when we read Sundarakanda, when we do Sundarakanda Parayana, we do need to keep in mind that it is a religious act. It is an act that will give punya, but it is also an act that can give us a phala in this world, in this vyavahara. So going forward, when we pray to Hanuman, let's keep these aspects of his personality, these aspects of the character of Hanuman, such a great, illustrious character, in mind. And of course, let us continue to pray to him for these. Swasti. Mangalam stambhadimbhaya mangalam mrityumrityave mangalam raudrarupaya narasimhaya mangalam mangalam kosaleन्द्राय mahaniya gunatmane chakravartitanujaya sarvabhaumaya mangalam.